Hey there y'all, welcome to Honey and Earth Yoga. My name is Kenzie. I am a certified yoga teacher and a student of all things yoga. Today's class is going to be a short workshop style where we're focusing on our technique for Chaturanga Dandasana. So don't let the Sanskrit scare you. All it means is four-limbed staff pose. It specifically refers to the part where we go down into a low plank, which you'll see in just a second. So whenever you are in a Vinyasa style class specifically, if a teacher says, take your Vinyasa now, this is what they're asking you to do, is a Chaturanga Dandasana. So why do we care about our form in Chaturanga Dandasana? First and foremost, injury. I have personally injured my shoulder several times doing this incorrectly because I was just watching what the person next to me was doing, and it turns out they didn't know what they were doing and they were watching the person next to them. It's this chain reaction where we're all accidentally hurting ourselves because we think we're doing it correctly, but we're actually not. So in this short workshop, I wanted to show you what proper form looks like. We're going to go over each stage of a Vinyasa flow, and I'm going to also give a few tips to check your form, and then also a few ways that we can adjust it so that way we can make the pose more accessible for you no matter where you are in your practice. So first things first, if you haven't seen a Chaturanga Dandasana or Vinyasa flow, whatever your teacher calls it, this is what it looks like. So now that you know what it looks like, let's get up on our feet and start breaking down Chaturanga Dandasana Vinyasa flow. Okay, so unless your teacher tells you otherwise, you're going to start your Vinyasa flow usually in mountain pose, hands come to the side. On your inhale, you reach the hands up. I like to bend in the knees to make it fancy, but you don't have to do that. When your inhale, hands come up, sometimes the gaze can come up. Now on your exhale, forward fold. The feet are hip distance apart. That's going to be important for later in our flow. We're here on our exhale. Now to make this pose more accessible, you don't have to touch the floor if that's not feeling good. You can have the hands on the thighs or on the shin. Exhale. Now when we half lift, which is the next part of the sequence, we're going to come up and our body should make this sort of upside down L shape. You see how my back is straight? So some people half lift and they're like this, or they'll half lift and they'll come all the way up. If possible, we want to do this L shape. And again, you can bring the hands wherever they feel comfortable, So put it all together. We inhale, exhale, fold. Inhale, half lift. Typically, you're going to exhale and go back into a fold. Then do one more half lift, remembering to keep this L shape. Now here's where we're going to come into the more technical parts of our Chaturanga Dandasana. What I want you to do is plant the hands in front of you. They should be roughly in line with the feet, about shoulder width apart. If they're too far out or too far in, you're going to have trouble with this next part. So adjust where you see fit. It's totally fine to take a generous bend in the knees here. You don't have to have everything straight and be bendy. So from here, most people step the feet back into a high plank. Take a look at what my hips are doing. My hips aren't up here. They're not up here. They're straight. I'm engaging my glutes and my core to hold myself up. Now, planks aren't fun, and I don't like doing them all the time. So if this isn't feeling great, also there's a lot of pressure on the wrist here, drop the knees, boop. Totally fine. This still counts as a Vinyasa. There are no bonus points for suffering for no reason. So you can have the knees be on the ground, point the toes if you want to look Instagram famous, or come up onto your plank. Oh. Your plank is technically what Chaturanga Dandasana is referring to When we talk about four-limbed staff pose, all four of our limbs are engaged and we're making a staff pose shape with our body. So that's where that comes from. From here, we come into the most challenging part of a vinyasa. We're going to come into a low plank, but we're going to make sure that our shoulders are about yay width apart, and we're going to bend until we come down. Okay, so we're essentially doing a push-up. Now, this is not like the push-ups that you do at the gym where you might be, let's see, my push-ups aren't that great, but you see we're a little bit wider. Whenever we're in a yoga one, we want to be a little bit narrower. And that's going to make sense later on when we work on our elbows. And that's actually how I injured my shoulder. I was going way too wide with my Chaturanga, thinking that it would, I don't really know what I was thinking. I think the guy next to me was doing it and it looked cool. Don't do that. We want to keep them fairly narrow and in line with where our shoulders are. Okay, this is not the pose to be doing some crazy stuff out to the side, okay? All right, so let's meet back in our plank. Do you love doing planks? I love planks, they're so fun. Okay, so we come into our plank, or a modified plank in my case. We lower ourselves down. Now, do you see what my elbows are doing? They're not out here, right? They're not up here. They're coming down in a parallel shape. And that's the key here. So whenever our elbow kicks off to one side, too far forward, too far backward, we risk being unbalanced. And then we also risk putting the weight somewhere that we don't want the weight. And often that falls into the shoulders, and you could actually do some crazy stuff to your rotator cuff, and you do not want that. The tricky thing about this is vinyasas are designed to happen really quickly. So if you aren't watching yourself in a mirror, you might not be able to catch whenever your elbows are doing some weird stuff. So one of my brilliant yoga teachers taught me this trick that I'm going to share with you. And we need some blocks for this, but you can also use thick books. For this, it'll be about the same. Okay, so what we want to do, let's see, is bring our hands and arms in alignment with the blocks here. So they should be about straight. So I come into my plank. I'm going to show you the wrong way to do it. Okay. Oh, look what's happening. I bumped into the blocks, and sometimes you'll knock the blocks over. So what that tells me is that my elbows are coming too far out of alignment and that I might be hurting myself. So ideally what we want to do is keep our arms completely straight and lower ourselves down. And when we do that, we really shouldn't disturb the blocks too much. So let's see what that's going to look like with proper form. Actually, here, let me take these out a little bit wider. There's no room for my body. Okay, that's better. Make sure you're lined up with the blocks. Exhale, come down. Push back up. Do you see the difference? There really wasn't a lot of disturbance in the blocks, and that's how I know my arms were straight as I came down. You can check your form doing this, just watching yourself in the mirror, but I really benefited from having that experience of knocking over the blocks to realize what I was doing. So this is just one more tool in your toolkit that you can use to see how you're doing whenever you're coming into that lowering position. So we're in our plank, we exhale, we come down. Now, the other thing to remember here is that when I come down, I'm not splaying my elbows out that way. I am actually hugging them in. My elbows are touching my rib cage. And that's actually providing additional support and weight distribution, so that way not everything is in my shoulders. So let's watch that again. And exhale. You see I'm at a 90-degree angle, and whoa, it's hard to talk when you're in a plank, friend. So you're in a 90-degree angle, and you've squeezed them in to the ribs. From low plank, we have 2 more postures in a typical vinyasa. We are in our low plank. From here, we press up into upward facing dog. Some people like to do this fancy move where they roll over their toes. It looks cool. I used to be able to do it until I broke my foot, and now I can't do it anymore. But what I realized is that whenever you're trying to do the toe rolling trick, and if you don't know what it is, you're not missing out on anything. But basically when we do that, we are changing the length our body needs to go to get back up into down dog. So it's not bad, and it looks cool, but it does make some parts of the flow a little more challenging. So it's just something to keep in mind. So what I like to do is whenever I'm coming down, I'm transitioning into up dog, I flip the toes so that way the tops of my feet are on the mat. I'm lifting up through my core. Some people prefer to have their hips lower to the mat. If you want something a little chiller, you're still gonna get a pretty intense stretch here. So it's definitely not a passive pose. Regardless of whether you have your hips down or up, we wanna try to look to the sky. And then one last transition here. We press up through the hands, flip the toes again, press back into downward facing dog. While we're here, there are some things to consider with downward facing dog. Let's take a second to look at our form. We want our feet to be about hip distance apart, not too close together and not too wide either. We want them to be about hip distance. Our hands should be roughly in line with our feet. Now, if you have shoulder difficulties, you don't have to keep your hands facing straight ahead. You can actually turn your down dog hands out at a 45-degree angle. This is gonna kind of change the distribution of weight and pressure into the forearms more so than the wrists, which is nice if you've got crickety wrists like I do. Now the thing about down dog is that we're not trying to press our feet down or be the bendiest person in the room. Our feet, it doesn't really matter if our heels touch the floor or not because that's not the goal of the pose. The goal of the pose is actually to open the chest and back. If you can get your heels on the ground, that's just a bonus. So let's inhale and exhale. I'm gonna come into a seat. So the reason that so many teachers have us do a vinyasa flow is that it resets you in between flows. So a lot of our flows start from downward facing dog. That's just the nature of how yoga choreography is. So you'll have to do these usually in between sets that your teacher is having you do. So depending on your teacher and the style of yoga you're doing, you could be doing anywhere from 4 to 16 vinyasa flows in a single class. And that's why it's so important to check your form. I tried to make this tutorial beginner friendly and short and easy, but if there's any questions you have or anything you think I missed, please drop a comment in the chat and I'd be happy to respond. Let's quickly close out this very, very short mini practice by inhaling, reaching the hands overhead. Exhale, hands to chest. Thank you so much for spending your time focusing on your body, improving your health, and deepening your practice. I honor the people and places that have brought this practice to us. Om Shanti. Go in peace.